Welcome to the Million Dollar Multi-Op Podcast. Here, you're going to find education, entertainment, and a little inspiration on how to get to the next level. Are you a DJ company owner that's looking for the secret sauce? Congrats, you found it.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Million Dollar Multi-Op Podcast. I'm your host, David Osborne, with BlueprintLearn.com. On the podcast today, we have Alan Berg, who is a renowned wedding business consultant and speaker, known for his expertise in sales training, business consulting, and website reviews. He's authored seven books and hosts the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you, David. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I like that. I like this video. Yeah.
We're excited about you. They can't wait for you to review their websites. Coming soon. Well, if you are in the industry and you've been in the industry for any length of time, if you're in any Facebook group related to the DJ industry, you have seen or heard about Alan Berg in some form or fashion. And you got a name that precedes you, Alan.
Well, I've been around this a long time, and it's funny how many people think that I am or was a DJ. Right? Because I'm at all the major conferences, and I speak about this, and I even have a version of my book, Shut Up and Sell More, the DJ edition, right? So DJs, photo booth, and bands and stuff. And I think I relate so well to DJs because my business as a speaker is like a DJ business, right? I'm the talent. And I've chosen to be a single op, not a multi-op for my particular business. But that was a choice. That wasn't like this just happened this way. I said, no, it's going to be me and that's it. I charge a higher number than probably anybody in our industry. And I do things at a high level, and I choose the customers I want to work with. And again, so many things parallel. That and the fact that I'm a musician, so music is a big part of my life. But it's really just funny how many people are like, so when did you stop DJing?
Well, I've never started.
Exactly. I did make mixtapes back in the day.
Hey, that counts.
Yeah.
Counts. Something there.
Yeah.
And, I know in some of the conversations we've had in the past, your background, with sales, you've had a team that you've had to manage those. So even though you were never a multi-op per se, right, because in your speaking career, you're solo, you do have experience with getting people to do things in a very similar way and being in charge of that as in management. So just for some background, for those of you that don't know what Alan's done in the past, talk about your career with wedding sales.
So I started out selling wedding advertising for a wedding publication called Wedding Pages. And after 5 years of that, my wife and I bought them. They were franchises. And we owned 2 Wedding Pages franchises. And there I did run a team of salespeople because I had 3 salespeople, and then we had people in the office and so forth. So I did that for 5 years. And then the franchisor wanted me to come work for them. And then 4 months later, a little startup that we hadn't heard of called The Knot, who had just had their IPO, initial public offering, they bought our company. So in 2000, I had already been in wedding sales for 10 years. And The Knot bought Wedding Pages, and I ended up at The Knot. I was there for 11 years. Among other things, I was vice president of sales, did all the sales training internal and externally. If you were around at any of the major conferences during those 11 years, you saw me. I was there. I was the main speaker for The Knot. The Knot was always a feature there, and I was the main speaker. And interestingly, again, going back to the talent thing, I realized when I had a personal brand, which is when people asked for me to come and speak, instead of can The Knot send somebody. And this is a lot of what you were just saying, how I understand what this is. Now, I had anywhere from 3 salespeople in the beginning with my business, a dozen when I was regional sales director, 20 or more, and then eventually 50 or 60 because I was vice president of sales. And we're doing tens and tens of millions of dollars at the time. Does more now, but back then. So, I managed a remote sales force. So I also understand what that's like, to have 50 or 60 people that you can't walk down the hall and see, right? So understanding that world in terms of that. But a lot of what I learned about managing multi-ops with DJs is working with my clients, over this 30 years of working with multi-ops, learning what works, what doesn't work, having these same questions. It's interesting. The question about packages versus a la carte or whatever is the same question I've been hearing for 25 or 30 years, because it's a business question. It's not a wedding question. It's not a DJ question, right? It's a I offer services. Should they be a la carte? Or I own a restaurant. Should I be selling a price fixed menu, or should I be selling it a la carte? Right? It's the same question.
It's totally the same question. And, I like that not only do you have a high level of expertise in sales, just as someone who does sales, but when you manage a team of people that do sales, you are having to teach the ability to scale relationship building. And like you just said, that's not a DJ skill. That's not a wedding skill. That's an everything skill. That's a human skill.
Right.
And when you speak, and you speak with such authority on stage about packages and pricing, like you just said, not just because you've spoken a lot at conferences, but because you've lived it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's so impactful. It's, I like to give, I get on a call with a couple and I'm trying to sell our services. There's kind of a point where you're just like, listen, I've been doing this for 15 years. Just believe me, And
Let me tell you.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason why an expert should be listened to, and I think that's been such a great force on our industry. I've seen you speak multiple times at multiple conferences, and your pillars and the things that you believe in always get mentioned and always get said, which is why they're so memorable.
Thank you. And the thing is, couples do want you to tell them what to do. It's just how you do that, because when we buy something, we're all consumers, right? We're not just businesses, we're consumers. When we buy something, I pay attention to that process. I pay attention to the friction. I pay attention to how easy or hard it is for somebody to make it to do business. If you're buying something you've bought before, you ask for help for the things you don't understand, right? The new feature, the whatever, right? So if you're deciding on new glow tubes, or if you're deciding on a CO2 cannon or whatever it is, if you've never bought one, you start asking your friends, you start asking the supplier, the manufacturer, the distributor, whatever. Hey, listen, this is the type of events that I do. What do I need? How big is this? How many whatevers do I need, right? If you've bought it before, then it's just, a lot of it comes down to availability and price, because you're asking about the thing that you want because you already know that you want it. However, that distributor, whether it's, Ben Stowe or whoever it is, might say, you know what, tell me how you're using this. And you tell them and they say, you know what, that's not the right model for you. You can go for this one. This one's, I didn't even know there was a model 7, 17, 37, 97, whatever it is. And they're being your guide, right? Even though you said, I want this, they're like, well, maybe you do, maybe you don't. There's a great book called The Challenger Sale by Matthew Dixon and some other people. And it's basically challenging the results that this is my paraphrasing, challenging the results somebody's asking you about and presenting them with results they didn't know they could have. So the best thing you can do as a salesperson is listen to the results that your customer wants, wedding, corporate, school, mitzvah, kinseh, whatever it is, and then present them with a way to get to results that are not just what they're asking for, but might be better for them, right? Not just trying to sell them more. I never want anybody to oversell. Oversell is selling somebody because you're taking their money. They don't need that stuff, right? However, if they say, I want to get to this result, and you say, hey, here's how we do it, and it costs more than they had first anticipated, which is probably what it's going to be because they've never bought it before, so they don't know how to budget for it. You're being the same person who's saying you need a Model 17, a Model 97, whatever, because that's the result you want. I actually just I was on a podcast just before, and I said to the guy, what microphone are you using? Because it sounded like it was overmodulating a little bit in the beginning when he was talking. Right now, I'm not a microphone expert. I've been using microphones since I'm a teenager in bands and stuff like that. But I know overmodulation when I hear it. And he said, okay, I'm using this. I said, all right, just listen to the recording. See if you hear what I heard. Maybe his microphone needs to get updated, right? Something like that. So your job to say to that couple, you should do this, is, hey, you know what? You guys said you wanted this. How about this? Would this be a good thing for you and your guest? Yeah. Okay. So here's what you should do. If I was you, here's what I should do. Because that same guy, Matthew Dixon, wrote a book, and it was, oh gosh, what the name of the book? It's The Jolt Effect, JOLT, about indecision. A lot of times, David, that couple, customer, whatever, needs you to say, you know what? You guys sound like you're confused. You said you want this, this, and this. If I was you, I'd go with this. And they may be like, oh, okay, thank you. Right?
Yes. You just touched on something very, very powerful in the sales process. To be a guide, you have to be respected as an expert. Because okay, real story. Today's a Monday. A week ago, I did a wedding in North Georgia, and one of our DJs came with me to assist me. And he was telling me a story that he went on a trip to, and they were at the Mount Kilimanjaro with some friends through the University of Georgia. And they had these guides, and I called them Sherpas, but that's not the title. Sherpas for other mountains, but
Okay.
they are essentially the guides you hire to bring you up the mountain. And he was telling me that some of the people, respected the authority of the guides, and other ones didn't. And you guess which ones made it and which ones had to turn back, because there's guides for a reason, and those guys have been up that mountain hundreds of times. They know the pace, they know where to turn, they know when to take breaks, they know how to hydrate. You listen to them because they're going to get you where you need to go. And I think what you're saying is no different.
Well, if a consultant, right, a psychologist, I mean, think about all these people that are our guides. Part of it is we also have to be open to listen. We have to be open to, and that's where, like you said, if you're already seen as an expert, that helps. So how do you set yourself up that way? What is it that you're doing on your website? Do people come to you and are they looking for your guidance? And also maybe sometimes it's not a good fit because somebody's telling you what they want and you're like, okay, if that's what you want, I'm not the right fit.
Right. You want to go up Kilimanjaro in only 6 hours and pass out? Someone else is going to help you do it, not me.
That's it. We're not calling the helicopter. So
we don't have cell signal out here, brother.
Yeah.
So those were some really great tips about being a guide, being an expert. On the other side of things, though, big mistakes, the common mistakes, the ones that over and over again in all your years, not just in the DJ industry, but any wedding sales where there are teams of people. And what are those big mistakes that you see over and over and over and over again that people are making?
I think one of the biggest is promoting people to positions that they're not suited for. And you promote them because of their longevity with you, their tenure. You promote them because you like them or whatever, or you promote them because they're good at something. So then you put them to something else what they're not good at. Now, I've seen, I don't know how many resumes in my life because I hired so many people or looked to hire so many people. And a resume is what someone has given you the chance to do. So a resume is not what you're capable of. It's what you've done, right? So I always hired people, not their resumes. That was the first thing. But I also promoted people because of the skill set. And I moved, I wouldn't say demoted people, to a different seat because they were a good person with a good work ethic and all that, but they were just in the wrong job. It just wasn't a good fit for them. So I had salespeople. I moved to customer service because they couldn't close a deal. The customers loved them. They knew the product. They loved the product. They're passionate about the product, passionate about helping people. Great. You belong in customer service. You don't belong in sales, right? Promoting a salesperson to a manager. Well, just because you're really good at something doesn't mean that you're going to be good managing other people, because I don't know if most is the right word. A lot of people who are good at something don't understand why they're good at what it is. And you promote someone to a management position. Now that person understands what motivates them. I'm actually listening to a book right now about motivation and talking basically about everything I've thought about motivation is wrong. I shouldn't say everything, but a lot of it. And it's what motivates one person doesn't necessarily motivate the next. So let's say you're motivated by money. So you think everybody's motivated by money, and then your salespeople aren't taken off with your money motivation, with this woman in this book I'm listening to calls it the junk food of motivation, the carrots, money and stuff, status and things like that. For me, money wasn't the motivator, because money's only a motivator to a certain point. It motivates the point where you're paying the bills and all that kind of stuff. And if you have a little bit of money left over, that's great. More money after that doesn't motivate a lot of people. And one of the things she said is, somebody says they want a bigger house. Okay. If they want a bigger house because they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 kids and whatever, that motivation is strong, right? But if it's, I want the bigger house because the status of it, or I want that car because of the status of it, that's junk food, because what next? Right? Yeah. So now you have the BMW, now you want the Maserati. You get the Maserati, now you want the Ferrari. You want the Ferrari, now you want the Bugatti, right? When does it stop? And the motivation changes over time. people's different motivation. Where you are in your life with your little kids versus me with empty nest, we're in a different part of motivation, right? So promoting somebody to the wrong seat, or putting somebody in the wrong seat. Now that could be bringing them from outside in the wrong seat, or promoting them to the wrong seat. That's a big mistake. Just because somebody's good at sales doesn't mean they can manage other people's sales. Just because somebody's good at DJing doesn't mean they can train other DJs, right? Because what makes you good isn't necessarily the skill set of that other person. You might hate the sync button, and the other person might love it, and their customers, their guests, have a fantastic time and don't care what button you pushed, just like they don't care if you're using Serato, and they don't care what kind of speakers you're using, as long as they're having a great time and it sounds good, right?
You got the level up, Alan.
Oh, cool.
Everything you just said was spot on. We've been talking about this a lot in our own company, on some of the other podcasts. Just because someone makes a good DJ doesn't mean they're a great manager or a great trainer. When I taught school back in the day, we used to talk about this all the time. They would promote a great teacher to become a principal, and it would usually end in disaster, because being a principal is a PR position. It's not a teaching position. You're working with adults in the press, and so you have to hire for the job that you have, not for the people that are already there. You have to put the right people in the right spots.
And understand the skill set that's necessary. Just because somebody hasn't done it, you might look at somebody and say, hey, I think they can do it. A good example of that, back when I was at the Knot, we had a receptionist in the office in Omaha, and there was an opening, and I wanted to put her in that opening. And the COO at the time was like, no, she's a receptionist. I said, right, that's what she's doing, but I think she could do this. I think she's organized and all these kind of things. No, she's a receptionist. She just had that lens on. That's what she was. And this went on for a bunch of different things. And finally, she let me move her to this position. And by the time that person left, she was a vice president.
Whoa, that's a major level up.
Right. But again, to me, is I saw her, not the seat she was sitting in. I saw her and said, yeah, I think she can do this. I think she's organized. She's proven to me through her actions. The other side of that is I had salespeople who wanted to be regional sales directors, who asked for that, who I would never put in that seat because that wasn't their skill set. And then there was somebody that clearly to me demonstrated the skill set. And when I had an opening, I said, hey, do you want this? And she's like, no, I have little kids. I have whatever. Well, a bunch of years later, she eventually did take that position. And I think actually she might still be in that position there, which could be like 20 years later, in that position, or at least 20 years with the company. And that's the thing is, can you see the people? Can you see the skill set? Not can you see, what they've done? They are a fill in the blank. I got my job when I graduated college. Well, the first job was installing burglar alarms, and playing in a rock and roll band. But I got a job with the largest ad agency in the country, which was the job that I wanted. So I thought. I didn't do anything related to advertising. I left 10 months later. I'm applying for a job in a retail store as an assistant manager. And this woman's looking at my resume and she's going, okay, largest ad agency in the country, magna cum laude, college degree in marketing and accounting. Why do you want this position as assistant manager of this store? And I looked at her and I said, honestly, it pays 50% more than I'm making now. That's what I said to her. And she hired me. And 6 weeks later, I was managing the store. Now, David, I had never worked in a store. I never rang a register. I never stocked a shelf. She hires me as an assistant manager. And then 6 weeks later, Matt made me manager of this store. I think we were doing $3 million a year or something ridiculous like that. And this is way, way back. And she taught me without saying the words. She hired me. She didn't hire my resume. She saw a skill set and she said, yes, you can do this. You can do this. You can run this store. You can do that. I trust you with that. And that's what I've tried to pay forward and try to teach is let's look at people. Let's look at people. That's why I was just reading an article about the Army band. So the West Point, it's got the Army band. It's really, really, really hard to get into that. When they do the auditions, they do them blind. So there's a curtain up. So you can't see man, woman, color of the skin, tall, short, thin, heavy, whatever. You can't see that. You can simply listen to how good they are on their instrument, which is what we need to do better as business owners and just people in general, is to look and say, hey, what is this person capable of? And just because they haven't done it, let's give them a chance. The other thing, the other big mistake is that people give responsibility without authority. And you need to give, if you're going to give responsibility, you have to give authority, and you have to give people an opportunity to succeed, which means that there's an opportunity to fail. And then how you treat those failures is how they're going to move forward or not move forward. And that's really based upon how you as the owner are going to look at that and say, okay, you know what? I might not have done that, right? I appreciate that you took the initiative and you did that. Didn't work out the best way for us. Okay, let's just move forward on it. Next time, you might want to consider this, or give me a shout. If you can't get a hold of me, make the decision again. Making decisions is important. I believe in you. I trust you. And as opposed to that was bad. That, you give somebody a responsibility without authority, they can't make the decisions, and the biggest thing is if you're a multi-op owner and you want to be sitting on a beach somewhere, drinking a cool drink with a small umbrella and have your business making you money, you have to have people who have responsibility and authority so that they can make those decisions without your phone buzzing all the time. I always said when I was VP of sales at the Knot, if I was putting out fires all day, that's my fault. It's my fault because I did not have the right people in the right places with the right authority to go along with the responsibility. If I did my job right, it should look like I'm doing nothing. It should absolutely look like I'm doing nothing as vice president of sales because everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing and they're not coming to me to solve all their problems.
Man, Alan, bringing the heat on all these gold nuggets, because so many things that you just said, it's like the right version of delegation. Because a lot of people, they're like, oh, delegation is, hey, go do these 5 things and then come back to me and tell them, and then let's review. No. Like delegation is just straight up, hey, this is your thing now. And then I heard this a while back, and I don't remember who said it. It could have been in a book I read. I don't remember. Someone mentioned to me about the healthiest sign of a business is when the CEO doesn't have all the answers. And I don't mean that in like an aloof kind of way. I mean, like there's someone who does know the answer, and let me just direct you to the right person who has that answer. If someone says, hey, what's your closing percentage for Q2? I don't know. Like it's written down in a document. Go talk to my sales manager. They can tell you.
Right.
If you have all of the answers, too much is flowing through you.
Right. Everything can't be your decision. I remember when I became a sales director at the Knot. So I went from publishing wedding magazines. I had 3 people, became a sales director. I had 12 people, and sales rep came to me and said, I have a problem with a customer. I said, no, you don't. She said, yeah, I do. I said, no. I said, I'll bet that you would like to talk about your customer and something that's going on. She said, yeah. I said, okay. So what's going on? So she told me. I said, okay. And what do you think we should do about it? And she said, you want to know what I think? I said, it is your customer, isn't it? Yeah. So what do you think we should do? And she said, well, I think we should do this. I said, will that make them happy? She said, yeah. I said, are you sure? Do you think that will make them happy? She said, yeah. I said, okay, then go ahead and do it. Right. And she's like, okay. And after a while, people would come to me and say, hey, listen, I had this situation with a customer. Here's what I did.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you're the one giving them the answers, they're going to keep coming to you with the questions. What I wanted them to, first of all, was reframe that we don't have problems. We have solutions. Right. So come to me with the problem and the solution. Come to me and say, here's what's going on with my customer. I think we should do this. And then I'd be like, good, go ahead, do that. Right.
Yeah. Come with a solution.
Right. The funniest one was when a customer called me. Now, nobody called me unless they had already gone through a bunch of people, right? So nobody called me to say, I'm so happy now, right? So they call me up and they say, here, this is what's going on. And I would, again, listening was really important. So I always listened. I said, have you spoken to your rep about this already? Yeah. Now I had already spoken to the rep, right? We already talked about what to do. And I said, did you speak to them? I said, yeah. I said, what did they say? Well, they said they could do this. I said, really? That I think that's really generous. I don't think I would do. Did they really tell you that? Yeah. No, really, they did. You're not making this up, right? Like they really. Yeah. I said, well, tell you what, how about we forget we had this conversation? You call them back and you tell them that's okay. Because I think that's more generous than I would have done.
That's brilliant. I love it.
So again, the answer was already there. The customer is coming to me to get it better. I'm telling the customer they already have it better than I would do, right? Again, it's just empowering the person again. I never, as a employee wanted footsteps on my back, right? Customers going over me to my boss. I didn't want customers doing that to my reps, because, very important thing, you take care of your people, the people will take care of your customers. You have to take care of the people. If you haven't read Setting the Table by Danny Meyer from the Union Square Hospitality Group, and then one of his people, Unreasonable Hospitality is a newer book by one of his people. But again, you take care of your people, then you set the example for this is how we take care of our customers, but you take care of your people, they'll take care of them. I had customers who would do things that I thought were not right to my reps, and I would fire the customer, right? Because I'm taking care of my people. My people are still going to be here. I had one customer who was on the phone, the language make a sailor's hair curl. And I said, listen, I understand you're upset, but if we can't have a just reasonable conversation here without that kind of language, this conversation's over, right? That's it. And it's also just that, again, that same kind of authority there. Take care of your people. All right. If you have a multi-op, you take care of your people from top to bottom. There is no unimportant job. And I say that again, there is nothing that is unimportant in your business, because if it doesn't get done, you'll find out just how important it is. And that means taking out the trash is important, right? Charging the lights is important, right? Right.
Yes,
All these things, but there's no unimportant thing. And that's something, again, to pay forward to your people, right? It's to teach your people that they see that everybody is seen, right? Like I make it a point if I'm walking in a hotel and there's a housekeeper or whatever, that I look at them and I smile. I don't just put my head down, because I want you to be seen. Because if you don't clean the room, I'm going to notice, right?
Oh yeah. Request a different room, please.
Yes. The one without the smoking dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to cycle back to something that you said. You're talking about making sure people are in the right seats, or like making sure that your people are the right qualifications. Is there maybe like a couple things that you would look for, or maybe what you did look for when you were at the Knot? What makes someone a great salesperson? Like, what characteristics would you look for in a person that you'd know, hey, this person could do sales?
Well, the first thing is, by the time they got to me, I was their third or fourth interview. And if you couldn't sound excited to me, right, how are you going to be on the phones all day making phone calls, right? So that's part of it. How you presented yourself, understanding it. Did they do any research? That's also, you should be doing some research before you make that sales call, if you can, find some stuff about it. A lot of it for sales was really just first impressions, because that is what people are going to notice. So what was my first impression of them? They should be interviewing me as much as I'm interviewing them. So that's also part of, you're a salesperson. Did they come prepared with any questions? Are they asking me any questions? Sales is a questioning skill. That is what it is. It is not a talking skill. So I also look for the people that just talked and said, okay, well, this is somebody that's going to just go on with verbal diarrhea instead of having a better sales conversation. But that's what sales is, right? My family, talking is a competitive sport. We're no shortage of words in our family here. When I'm selling, you're going to hear me asking a question and then stopping talking.
Ooh,
and then you're going to hear me saying something about what you said and then asking you another question again, because that's what the sales skill is. That's what I've learned. My most popular book, Shut Up and Sell More Weddings and Events, or actually Shut Up and Sell More. There's 4 editions of it now, one for anybody. Shut Up and Sell More of just about anything, is really the lesson that I learned. And this was not a formal sales training lesson. It was my sales manager telling me to shut up when I had just won literally the National Product Information Championship for all Chrysler Plymouth salesmen in the country. So I literally had the foam core $5,000 golf check, to say that I am number 1 in the country. And he's telling me, stop telling people that. Not that, don't tell them that thing. Stop talking about the product. Start listening better and talking about what they care about. And I was doing I think you should know thing, instead of finding out whether they wanted to know by phrasing it in the form of a question, and then being able to talk about it or not talk about it, right? Like, instead of talking about back then, talking about gas mileage, so is gas mileage important to you? Oh, not really. The company pays for the gas. Okay, great. End of conversation, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Or the length or the width or the height or whatever, if you're parking the car outside, who cares? Right. But if your garage, I had people would come in and say, my garage is this, here you go. I talk about when I teach sales for multi-ops and other people in the wedding and event industry, the 3 questions you want to know right off the bat are: what's the occasion? Who's coming? And what does a successful outcome look like?
Yeah.
Right. And so in an interview, what I'm looking for is, are they asking me anything? Are they asking about the job? Or are they just asking about compensation and stuff like that? Are they asking about the environment? Are they asking about any of the other salespeople? One of the things that I look for if I go to do training is, how long are your people with you? Right? Do you have any people that are with you a long time? Or is this like a fast new growth thing? You went from 3 people last year to 17 this year. Okay, everybody's going to be new. I would have told you probably not to do that, but that, if you would have come to me first, growth should follow demand.
Yeah.
Right. Growth follows demand. You don't scale up before it. We're in a wonderful business. You're selling now for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year from now. I have in one of my books, I have a chapter about sell it before you buy it. Right? Like that new feature, that new toy, that new whatever that you see at the show, get the promotional material, start selling it to your customers. And if they're buying it, okay, buy it before you need it. Right. But it's the same thing here. When I'm looking for, well, again, if there's a resume, people can AI their resumes these days and do stuff like that. So what does this resume say you've done? Let's say somebody really young. So what have they done? Right? They haven't had many jobs, but were they active in their school, team, band, clubs, debate team, whatever it is this, and then were they a leader, right? Or if it's college, were they an officer in their sorority, fraternity, whatever it is like that. If I'm looking for somebody who has leadership skills, what have you done that shows that you're a leader, right? So that's the reading between the lines stuff there.
The connection that I just made was in our interview process for DJs. It's a several step process, but the very last part of it is where I come in and I am meeting with someone in person. And it's funny that you mentioned the questioning and the curiosity, because one of the characteristics that I'm looking for, and it's really a pass fail kind of thing. There's no scoring an 85 on this and coming through. It's does the person, it's 2 things. Do you show up earlier on time, late, instant X? Second thing is, do you participate in the conversation enough and you ask me questions? And I tell them up front, I said, this is part of the interview process, but this is not an interview where I just ask you questions. We're just hanging out, buying you coffee, we're talking. And it's fascinating because some people will sit on the other side of a table from me and stare at me while I ask questions. And other people will ask me questions back, and I'm like, bingo, because this is a person who goes out for an unsupervised job as a DJ, and you want them to ask questions because those are the people that are successful. And even though they might not be closing deals at events, they are generating leads by making people feel good about themselves and talking and networking. And I think like it's a very interesting that you said that. I never thought about that. That's such a connected skill for entertainers and salespeople.
Well, it's because it's natural for you. Right. And that goes back to that same thing. That's who you are. Right. I have a curious mind. I've always had a curious mind. My sons have curious minds. My grandson has a curious mind. Right. It's just, it's in the genes there somewhere. And wanting to know more, wanting to know why. Right. I left that retail job because the new sales director came in and he didn't like that I asked why. Why do we do it this way or whatever? And that didn't work for me. So I'll go find something else. The idea of that person just sitting there, right? When you're in the entertainment business, I have to feel your energy, right? I have to feel you're coming in here. Do you want this job? Right? Do you actually want this job? Right? I can't tell you how many times people would send in a resume and the cover letter still had the other job they were applying for on it or things like that. I'm like, okay, again, instant. No, sorry. If you can't get that skill right, if you can't proofread your own cover letter that you're sending over here, done. And like you said, late or whatever. When I was out selling, if I was going to be 3 minutes late, I would call the customer and I would say, hey, listen, I hit some more traffic over here. And again, these were wedding and event businesses. Most of them, they're not sitting around with nothing to do. They're like, no, it's fine. It's not fine for me. It's not fine for me because I wasn't going to show up early. Right. So but that's also a skill. That's a thing. My older son is a bit of a procrastinator, right? But he's going to be on time for every meeting. All the professional stuff, he's going to be there. It's just, there are certain things that we just like, okay, all right, it's just him. It's just who he is. But that also is what's the right skill set for him. He's an analyzer, right? And the right skill set for him is he's the CFO of a company that powers the back end of crypto. Okay. So that left brain analytical thinking is the perfect skill set for that. His brother, does woodworking now, he's a custom commercial furniture company. He's a graphic designer by trade, also does photography. That would not be a good seat for his older brother. No. And then the other way around, my younger son, we were just with him the other day. He's like, every few months I ask him to tell me what he does. I still don't know, but I don't understand. He says, I know the title. I just don't understand what he does, because he starts talking about derivatives and things like that. And, the eyes start going, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what it is, but that's a good example. These two people came from the same parents, and their skill sets are completely different, and what they should be doing is completely different. And you have to understand that I have someone who's a really good DJ or a really good salesperson may not be a great DJ. And maybe they should just be doing sales, right? Maybe that's what it is. And just understanding that just because somebody says, hey, I want to do this, is there work that they can do to get them to that point? There are certain personality things that there's just certain things you can't put people in. I had salespeople that could tell you, they could train another salesperson, but they couldn't close the deal themselves because they could tell you the steps to do it. But then when it came to doing it, they didn't do it. I actually just did it on my own podcast the other day. It was like, you started this, now finish it. And it's salespeople that get you to the 1 yard line and then just never cross the line. And the customers be like, oh, no, they were great. They were fantastic. No, I loved them. Well, why didn't you buy? Right? They didn't buy because you didn't ask. You didn't ask for the sale, right? That's why.
Got to get it over that 1 yard line.
That's it.
They don't write, your name doesn't go in the papers, at least in the good way, if you don't get it into the end zone.
Yeah.
And speaking of getting into the end zone, great segue to our close here. Alan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we could go on for hours. There's just a million things I think you could speak about and influence and help our industry. We're going to close it out for today. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone the best places to find you online?
Easiest will be my website, alanberg.com, ALANBERG.com. My podcast is Wedding Business Solutions, which you can find that on everywhere, or just go to podcast.alanberg.com. And then, of course, you'll see me at the conferences like you and I see each other there, David, major conferences. So between MEX and Marquee and Midwest DJs and Wedding MBA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not hard to find. And all the
You
socials.
are not hard to find.
No.
Not hard to find at all.
Yeah.
And everyone that's listening, thank you guys for listening and tuning in. As always, there are free resources at blueprintlearn.com/resources. Thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.